Hi guys, welcome to your phase 2 portion of your Katana training. In this training, we're going to go over the patient files, how to schedule an appointment, basically a brief run through of everything associated with your phase 2 training. Please keep in mind that we will not be going over everything in exclusive detail, as it's hard to accommodate for every scenario that could possibly come up, but you will have detailed information provided in the links with your phase 2 training area. And you can always reach out to support with your specific need, and we can try to see how the software can accommodate that. So let's get started. First, I'm going to go over to our patient Rolodex. And when your database is delivered to you, you will see patients listed if a CSV file was provided to support during that customization period. If you need to access and add any additional information to that patient, you'll just simply click on them and hit open, or you can double click the patient file as it will open that way as well. But for this, I'm going to go ahead and select the new patient button. And we're going to fill out some information for this patient. I'm going to go ahead and fill out all of the data. Now, it is very important to add in as much data as you do have available, because you can use these different data areas such as occupation, gender, emails, all kinds of different things for your campaigns area, which will be discussed later. But it is always important to get as much information as you can in at the time that you are entering the patient, to prevent from having to go back in and add it later. But if you have to, that is totally fine. You can always edit a patient file and then get the needed information in. So I went ahead and added my first, middle, and last name. The account number is not pre-populated with Katana. The account number area is a free text area, so you can associate an account number from a previous software or assign a specific account number to this patient. Just keep in mind, in the background, you can see over here on our Rolodex that there is an internal ID column, and that is provided to each and every patient that is imported into your database or manually entered. So that way the patient does in fact have a specific ID associated with them. So in this case, I'm going to leave that blank. This patient does not have a nickname, does not have a spouse. I'm going to select my case information or my clinic information from the drop down. I'm going to go ahead and add in an email. Go ahead and add in an address. City, state, zip. And now this information is not correct because I'm just adding it in. You're going to go ahead and put in your home number for the patient, work number, cell phone number, and the cell phone number is required for appointment reminders being sent out via text. So you'll want to make sure that that information is in there. You will go ahead and select a source based on how this patient was referred. If you have a patient coming in from a K-funnel, then that source will automatically be attached based on that K-funnel that was created. You can select a major condition. This area is not available to be edited, but you can select other if the information is not there. If you select this source button, it will bring up the Rolodex, allowing you to tie a specific patient, stating that that patient actually referred this patient to the clinic. You have the ability to set a status. Every time you're adding in a patient, they will automatically default to this active status. This status is not going to stick with this patient unless you actually check this box, because in Katana, It is monitoring a patient's status based on what is happening with that patient. So if they've come in on a K funnel, they're actually going to be selected as a lead. Once they've had an appointment scheduled, so they may not have arrived yet, but they do have one on the books to come into the office, they will change statuses to a new patient. And then once they've completed that appointment plus 2 additional appointments, then they will actually have the active status associated with their account, and they will not change to an additional status unless they have not been in to Katana in at least 365 days, and then the system will change them to inactive on the back end. The system does these checks every 3 to 4 hours, so dependent on when this patient is being entered, based on that status check, it could be a little bit before they actually change to the appropriate status. But if I want to manually override the system, I can select a specific status or leave it as active and then hit this box that says do not have the system update status automatically, and then they will be locked in. But just keep in mind, for marketing purposes, if you do check this box, the system will not ever change their status. So if you want them to be inactive, or you would like them to have a lead status or something of that nature in the future, you would actually have to go in, manually enter that patient and change the status or uncheck the box, so that way the system knows that it can actually change the status for that patient. We're going to move down to Social Security. You have an area to select an assigned provider. This means that anything that happens with this patient, regardless of case or anything, charges, payments, everything will point towards this specific provider. You can go ahead and select gender. There is actually some additional gender options that's going to become available here in the near future. You would go ahead and click on the box to apply a date of birth. You can tell the system how this patient is employed or what their employment status is, what their occupation is. If in the event an occupation is not listed, you can always select any of these little paper icons next to a drop down and add in the option you need. You can tell the system who the employer is, what their marital status is, their new patient date, and you also have the ability to indicate to the software that campaign emails should not be sent to this patient. So maybe the patient has already told you, or they tell you at a later time. You can always come back in here and check this if you need to stop sending email campaigns. If this box is checked, it will stop email campaigns and also email reminders. So you may want to be choosy on when you're selecting that box. Once I have all my data in, I'm going to go ahead and select save. And it's going to open up the patient's file for me, displaying all of the information that I just entered. If you want to associate specific tags for a patient, you can definitely do so. Maybe in addition to the way that they were referred, you want to let the system know that this patient is pregnant. So you can go ahead, add that in, go ahead and select the plus sign, and then add in any additional tags you would like associated with this patient. And again, this is broken down for marketing purposes, so you can have multiple ways to market to any patient. If I go ahead and select the edit button, I can go ahead and tie a photo to this patient if I would like, by just simply clicking on the no picture available box. I can find a specific patient photo I would like to use, go ahead and select open. And then when this counter goes down, I can go ahead and select done when finished. It will apply my patient photo. And once I hit save, this patient photo will carry around with that patient throughout the database. So you'll see it in their file, in their appointments, in the appointment book, things like that. Anytime that patient is being looked at, it will also show the patient's picture in the text message queue when you're receiving text messages from this patient. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to case. Every single patient will need a case to tie appointments, payments, anything associated that you want to log in the system will have to be housed under the specific case for that patient. That is how Katana keeps everything organized. The patient can have multiple cases. So if you want to have a chiropractic case and a massage case or a supplements case, if you want to keep those separate, you definitely can, but the patient will have to have a case or you will not be able to move forward with the other selections that I'm about to show you. To go ahead and provide information to that case, we're just going to go ahead and select new down at the very bottom, and this will work the exact same way if you had patients imported, as they will all need cases as well. You're going to give the case a description. You have the ability to be as descriptive or as general as you would like. So I can do something like chiropractic if I wanted to, or I can be more specific and say how many visits they get, with their insurance, what their insurance is, what type of care they might be on, if I want to do maintenance. It all depends on how you would like to show what kind of treatment the patient is on. And this again follows them through when you're looking at their appointments and stuff. So this can be extremely helpful in knowing what to do with that patient, even when it comes to copays and things like that, if you have that information entered in here. Case type. Case type is a breakdown to where you can lump your patients into specific types of care. So you can have cash, Medicare, personal injury, general insurance, as these are all pre-populated into your Katana database. But if you would like to break it down even further by male or female, or somebody again that's pregnant, or somebody that's on maintenance versus acute, or something of that nature, you can always customize the case drop downs options by selecting the little pencil. It will bring up this box. You can add, edit, or delete any of these options available. But again, if you get very descriptive in the beginning when you're setting up your Katana database, then you can always tie the patient to the correct source, so you can run a case classification report that will tell you everyone that falls under that specific case type, how much revenue it's generating, how many appointments that have taken place, and things like that, so you can actually see what breaks down or what type of patients you primarily see in your office. So for this, I'm just going to go ahead and select cash. Release of medical info is extremely important that a date is selected if you're billing insurance, because you will get a scrubbing error if this date is not entered. The additional 3 dates that are here that you can select are not required by a HCFA form, but if you do have that information, it's always great to put that in, so that way you again can go right to your system and know exactly what's going on there. You can opt a patient in for reminder messages by just selecting email and text message. If you're using that option in your appointment reminder setup area in admin, you can go ahead and enter in any of this employment or auto accident information if you have it, but again, it's not required. But these red boxes are indicating where it would present that information on a HCFA form. We're going to go up here, select our specific price list that we want attached to the patient so the system knows how to charge that patient. You can select an attorney, referring provider, designated provider, and billing provider within the case, so the system again knows where all charges and payments should be pointed to if a provider is selected here. Keep in mind that designated provider is only for this specific case, so if the patient has an additional case, you can have a different designated provider for that case, as only assigned provider carries through amongst all cases. The billing provider can be selected in the event that you have billings that need to take place, and maybe you have a couple of associate doctors where HCFAs are not generated with their information. You could tell the system that no matter what, or no matter who the treating provider is, this billing provider is actually who should be listed. Once you have all of your information entered in, just go ahead and click Save, and that gives you the ability to continue moving on. And guys, I know that a lot of information is being provided to you, so if at any time you need to pause this video and come back to it later, you can always keep track of the minute markers so you can come back right where you left off. Okay, so moving on, we're going to go ahead and go to the Care Plan tab. The Care Plan tab allows you to apply a care plan on the fly for this specific patient, or you can attach a specific care plan template that you may have created in your admin care plan area. If I want to apply a care plan, I'm just going to go down to Add a Care Plan. I'm going to tell the system, am I going to use an existing plan template? And this again is coming from your admin templates area for care plans, or do I want to create a new plan? If you choose a care plan template from this screen, you will not be able to edit it at all. You won't be able to edit the CPT codes or anything associated with it other than when this care plan starts, stops, and when payments are due. But for this example, I'm just going to go ahead and select Create a New Plan and hit Next. And I'm going to choose Start from Scratch, but you do have the ability also to click Start with a Template, select a specific template that you have created, and then you can edit this template. So if maybe you're giving this patient a bigger discount, or instead of paying in full, you want them to make payments, all those different things that could be changed, you can go ahead and select that specific template. And then as you're walking through the steps, you will see that your information is pre-populated, and you would just change what is necessary while moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and select Start from Scratch. I'm going to hit Next. I'm going to give my specific template or my care plan a name. And we'll just say it's a 24 visit care plan over 6 months. We're going to tell it again how long the plan length is expected to take. And then it asks me, which is automatically checked as a default, but it states automatically extend plan length until all visits are used. If this box is unchecked, the care plan will end after the selected time frame, and any unused visits will be lost. So if it's stated that this patient only gets 6 months regardless to use those 24 visits, then you could uncheck this box and it will stop that care plan making any additional visits after that 6-month period, patient responsibility to pay. So we're going to go ahead and select Next. Now I'm going to tell the system how much this 24 visit care plan is worth. And I'm just going to say $250, and maybe that's not very realistic, but we'll go ahead and put that in. And then we would tell the system option 1, make payment. So we can say 6 monthly, weekly, bi-weekly payments, however you would like to do it. And then it will give you the breakdown of what the patient will owe during that time, and it will be due monthly. You can select option 2, down payment plus payment. So this is the patient's going to pay me $100 today, and then they're going to make 5 monthly payments of $30. Or you can have it selected as option 3, pay in full, where they're going to give you that money today, and there's no future payments needing to be collected. But I'm going to go ahead and select down payment of 100 plus 5 monthly payments of 30 and hit Next. Now I'm going to select the care plan start date. I can backdate this date. So if maybe the patient came in on the 1st, but I didn't have time to put the care plan in, I can go ahead and backdate it to the 1st, and it will pick up those charges. I'm going to go ahead and say that my down payment was due on the 1st, but then my monthly payments are going to start August 1st. And then I'm going to leave it defaulted as the first of every month until those payments are paid in full. Select next. Then it's going to ask me to apply patient discounts after plan credit has been exhausted. So this kind of works like a buy two, get one free. All of the $250 would be placed on the beginning charges. And then once the patient's money runs out, then the additional visits would be written off. Or I can select apply plan amount evenly across visits. So that way a little bit of their money basically is sent over to each individual data service. And then when I print a super receipt, it shows a little bit of their money is going towards every data service. I know there are some restrictions when it comes to specific states, counties, and things like that. So you'll definitely want to check what is available in your area as far as which option you should choose. But I'm going to go ahead and select next. Again, this was a 24 visit care plan. I do want to have those 24 visits available for the whole length of the plan. Or I can go ahead and select that I only want 2 visits for each week during the 6 months of their plan. But just keep in mind when you are doing this option, if the patient does not fulfill those visits for that time period, the care plan will continue to keep extending until they do 2 visits in 1 week for a duration of 6 months. So this kind of a care plan would actually need to be very closely monitored to make sure that all of a sudden the patient isn't getting a whole bunch of visits that they shouldn't have had. So I always suggest doing it during the full length of the care plan. And then we're going to tell the system what visit counts against the care plan, or I'm sorry, what CPT code counts against the care plan as a visit. So if I want an adjustment code to count against them as a visit, I can grab the adjustment code, drag and drop it. Now just keep in mind, you will want to think about the code that counts against them as a visit, because you do not want to put multiple codes here if they could be used together. So like, say an adjustment plus a therapy. I wouldn't want to put this therapy in here, because then it would count against the patient as 2 visits anytime those 2 codes are added to 1 visit at a time. So I might just want to go ahead and put these additional types of adjustment codes in here. But I'll go ahead and leave out the extremity, because the extremity would work or be applied when one of these other ones are applied as well. So I'm just going to leave those 2 as counting against a visit, select next, and then again, it's going to ask me end care plan once all visits have been used, regardless of time frame, or visit codes above the number allowed in the care plan will be free during the duration of this plan. So this one cares more about the 24 visits, whereas this one cares more about the 6 months. So I'm going to leave it as the first option, hit next, and then this is where I'm going to add in all the codes that the patient could get during this care plan, but they do not count against the patient as a visit. So we're going to say maybe they get an application of hot and cold pack, therapeutic exercises, and every time I drag and drop a code here, it's going to give me a unit value of 1. So if this can take place during all of the 24 visits, I'm going to want to change these units to reflect however many times it can be used, because if I happen to leave it as 1, but the patient has it done twice, then the second time will be patient responsibility to pay, because it's outside of the scope of the care plan. So we'll make sure everything is set up appropriately, and then we're going to go ahead and hit finished. If I was using an integrated merchant, you would actually see an additional window that allows you to tie a specific credit card to the patient, and then you can have auto debits ran for that care plan. In this case, I don't have that, so I'm going to select finished, and then it's going to pre-populate that data that I selected while creating this care plan. Not all of the information is displaying, because I need to close out of my patients, open them back up, go back to the care plan tab, and now you'll see all of this data. If I want to provide the patient with a copy of this data, I can by selecting the print button at the bottom right corner of this care plan column. Once I hit print, it will generate a statement based on everything that I selected. So you'll see the patient's name, the case description of the patient, the care plan start date, stop date, the care plan name that you entered, how many visits they get over the length of time, how much the care plan is valued at, do they have to make a down payment, and then monthly payments being due. You can, they'll see that discounts will either be applied across the whole care plan or all up front. It'll let them know if they get any kind of extra visits, the CPT codes that they're allowed to use, and it will also give them a payment schedule. So if in the event you would like them to have this information, you would just go ahead, print this out by selecting the print button at the top left, or you can export using the Excel export option, PDF or RTF for Word, and then provide this to the patient. And we do have some clinics that are actually opting to have their patient sign down here at the bottom and then scanning this form back into the computer and uploading it to their patient files. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. We're going to select this ledger tab, and the ledger tab is actually going to show you kind of like a running ledger of this care plan. So it's kind of like an escrow account where it's going to show you that the care plan down payment is there, but if I had appointments associated with this file, which I don't yet, it would actually show those visits, show the charges associated, and any credits that may be applied, and then you'll kind of see this plan balance going down. So right now, because it's only $100 was selected as the down payment, that's what came into the account. So it's going to run down this 100 until the next payment of 30, and it'll show that credited and then being used as well. You also have the ability to print that ledger and see all of the payments that were selected for that patient. Anything displaying in blue has not come up yet, so it's in the future. If I want to edit any of these payments that are in blue, I can go ahead, hit the Edit Payments button, and then select a specific date of when I would like that payment to be taken instead, or attached to their patient balance, because the system is not going to continue to run up their balance based on charges applied. It's actually going to show the balance based on how much money they owe you and when. You'll also have the ability to change out how much they owe for that specific appointment, or that specific payment. So maybe the patient's having a financial hardship and they stated that they can't pay you that $30 on August 1st, but they can pay you $60 on September 1st. You can go ahead and move the money around as long as the amounts total up the total amount due because of this care plan. Once you've made those changes, you can hit Save and Close. And then you can also reprint your payment schedule if anything changed, and now you can see that $100 was due up front, but then now nothing is due on August 1st, and then more money is owed on September 1st, but then it goes back to normal. You cannot edit a payment date if it has already passed. So anything that's displaying in black shows that the day has already came and went. So you can't change that. So if you want to give your patients the flexibility of moving their appointments around, it is required that they preemptively call you to let you know of an upcoming payment that is going to be taken. So now I'd like to move over to our Ledger tab. The Ledger tab will show you a running list of all charges, which I will come back to this here in a little bit after we've scheduled an appointment, but I did want to highlight and show you that you do have a ledger that will, again, show the charges, and then any money that's coming in, any write-offs that's being done, it will display them in a running flow of when they took place here. You can sort by newest to oldest, or oldest to newest, You can display a breakdown if you'd like, so it will show you payer balances and things like that when insurance is involved. But if you don't want to see that, you can always uncheck the box and keep it simple. Your charges tab will show you again a list of all charges. Every charge can be accessed by double clicking it, and it will show you who's responsible to pay that charge. And then you can always add in a manual write-off by selecting the add button, selecting the amount and the reason why. And then you'll just hit OK. You do not have to hit the add button again, as it will add another line for an additional write-off. So we're just going to go ahead and hit OK, and then you would see that our patient balance is reflecting that write-off and removed the $100 that was owed. Within the charges screen, I also have the ability to do a balance forward. So in the event I am coming from another software and I do need to bring in a balance that needs to have money applied to it, but I do not want to keep my old system running, I can bring that balance forward into Katana. I can give it a date of when it's transferred into Katana. I can say who owes it. So if this patient actually had insurance attached, which we'll cover in a later segment, you could actually apply this towards primary O's, and then an EOB that is brought into the clinic can actually be applied towards that balance. But we'll just go ahead and say that the patient actually has a $25 balance within my old software, and then I can go ahead and put in a line item note. This is for office information only, so you guys would be the only ones that see this, but you can say why it's coming in. And then you have patient information notes. This information prints on the patient statements and receipts. So you could put some information in here, making the patient aware that you're bringing this balance forward and they still owe it. Once I hit save, it will actually put the balance forward in here, and then that way money can be applied. And it did change my patient balance to $25 because I just added that in. Within here, you can also do rebills if insurance is involved. Rebills are done patient by patient, but you would have the ability to do so. You can do bulk write-offs for patient balances only. So if you want to come in and clean up a ledger, you can do a bulk write-off. If you did it in error, you could go ahead and select delete write-off to remove those. The payment tab allows you to post payments, do an outgoing credit transfer, incoming credit transfer. So outgoing transfer and credit or incoming transfer is very similar. This just states that either I'm sending money from this patient's case to another patient's case, or I want to grab money from another patient's case and bring it over here. You can do refunds, credit forward. So if you have a credit in your previous software and you want to bring it in, you can go ahead and select the credit forward button, enter in how much that is. Maybe they prepaid for care that they didn't receive in your other software. Provide a comment if you'd like, saying where that credit's coming from, and hit save. The nice thing about a credit forward is it's not attaching itself to your financials the same way. Even though the system is going to use it like a payment, it's not going to show that that money actually physically came in through Katana because it's actually being tracked on a report with your other software. If one was done in error, you can always select it and hit delete. Are you sure you want to delete this credit? We want to say yes. You can print receipts for any past payments that were taken. So if I go into post and I indicate to the system that I want to go ahead and make a $100 payment, and I'm just going to leave it as cash. I can post payment and print a super receipt. I can post payment and print a receipt, and this is just a payment receipt, or just simply post payment. If I accidentally hit that post payment button, but the patient actually did want a receipt, I can select it and hit print receipt. And then it'll go ahead and generate that receipt for me so I can provide it to the patient. If it's the end of the year and a patient wants a history of all payments made, you could highlight every single payment that's listed in the payments history and then hit print receipt, and it will show you a receipt of all payments made. You can do a bulk write-off in here as well. but this case has no balance because I actually do have a credit, so it won't let me do a bulk write-off. But those are your different payment options as far as patient payments. And then you will see an area at the bottom that's for EOBs, because any EOB that comes into your office and is applied to a data service, if this patient is attached, it will show a copy down here at the bottom, so you can actually access it and view it if you need to. So now I'm going to move over to our Images tab. The Images tab allows you to upload images such as patient's driver's license, x-rays, things like that. You'll also have the ability to either import those x-rays from a file, or if you do a screenshot, maybe your x-ray system doesn't allow you to download that image to your actual database, you could do a screen capture and then add it from your Windows clipboard. So again, you would have a nice clean area of all the images that you would like to see while treating a patient, because the Images tab is the only tab that allows you to access that information while treating a patient within their patient appointment. The system will keep all of your images kind of hidden in the background. So if you know you've uploaded some images, by just simply going to Add, selecting a specific image and hitting open and adding it to your file. If I was to close out this patient and open them back up, you'll see that the image is not displaying. If I hit this blue hyperlink, it will bring my image forward, and that's just to prevent any kind of slowing down of your software, because if the software was trying to load all images for all patients, it would actually start to bog your system down pretty heavy. So we added that hyperlink in there so you can just tell the system when you want to see those. The File tab works exactly the same way, but the File tab can be any type of file that you would like, whereas the image file has to be an image file. So you would go to the Files tab, again, hit Add, select whatever file you wanted to do, and we'll just do this little test patient image. You'll tell the system what it is that you're uploading. So I'm just going to say image, but you could say intake forms or something of that nature. Go ahead and hit save, and then it will log that, giving you the ability to see your note. So I definitely suggest being descriptive when applying that note, so that way you know exactly what it is you're looking for when you're trying to look for it, or you'll get a whole list of unknown files and have to hunt through them to get to what you need. If you uploaded a file to the wrong patient, or something happened where you actually needed to change that file, you can click on it and hit delete. If you wanted to delete the file, you would just select yes. Or if you actually wanted to view the file that you uploaded, you can go ahead and select edit. And then it would bring that file up for you. I apologize, I have two screens, so I had to bring that over so you could see it. But then if I needed to make any changes or anything like that, I definitely could. And then once I'm done viewing it, I would just hit done. The last tab I would like to go over before we get to scheduling an appointment is the Documents tab. The Documents tab allows you to create a document based on a documentation template that is housed under your admin documentation template area. Once those templates are created, you can always hit Create New. When your window comes up, you'll select the specific template you want to use. So in this case, I'm just going to use the soap note template. But you have the ability to create an unlimited amount of templates if you'd like. There are some. All of these that you see here are already pre-added to your database, but they will come with Katana logos and things like that. So you will want to edit all of them to make them personal for your specific clinic. But they're nice because you can create a template for, you know, work excuses, school excuses, again, SOAP notes that we're going to do here, an all records request, all these different things. So that way you only have to generate and create that letter once, but you tell the system what you want pulled into it from the patient's file. And then you would select the template here, give an option of a date range. And I'm actually, while we're doing this, I'm going to cancel this because I actually want to go to a patient that has some data. So we're going to go back to our Rolodex. Now I'm going to select the documentation tab in this file, select create new, and I apologize for jumping around. I'm going to select the SOAP note template. I'm going to give a date range. So I'm going to say everything before today because I don't know what dates of service I have in here. I can tell the system to do page breaks between documents. I can include the clinic information in the footer. I can include the patient's date of birth in the footer. And I can also associate a specific provider if I'd like. Once I have everything selected the way I need to, I'm going to hit next. And then you're going to go ahead and see what I added to the software. And you can see that my doctor's signature is extremely stretched, but yours wouldn't look like this. But I do a lot of things in our database to see different functions. But if your signature does look disproportionate to the screen size, you can always do like I'm doing and condense it down to exactly the way I'd like to see it. But this will bring forward all of the patient data. So in this case, it shows that the office, this is office visit notes for me. My Cairo case, the date of service, what time my appointment was, and then any SOAP notes that were entered in to that specific appointment. It'll show ICD codes, and it'll say it's electronically signed, and then show a signature. And then it does have these different footers displaying information. And then it just goes down to the next date of service, so on and so forth. So you can definitely take a look at this. And then once you're done viewing it, you can always hit next. And I definitely suggest hitting next and saving the file before you're making a whole bunch of edits, because dependent on your default program that's going to actually open up the file when you want to view it, you may need to make changes again, so that this way it prevents you from having to do it multiple times. Once I hit open, it will pop up. Once my document opens, again, you'll see it laid out a little different. And it did hold my changes as far as changing the signature, but I actually have seen it where it will revert back or it will change the spacing and things like that. So again, you know, you can do your edits here, but this is where you would actually see how it would print or how it would export if you were to save the file to your computer and then send it off. But everything in here is still a template, so you can still make those changes. If you don't want to see all this information in the page footer, you can remove it, things like that. But this information will be there every single time you generate a SOAP note document or anything like that, just because it was requested by insurance that that information be there. So if you don't need it, you can always remove it, you know, so your document doesn't show it. Once you're done doing everything that you need to do, you can save it to the computer, export it. You can print it by just selecting the different options. And then once you're done making your changes, you can just go ahead and select the X to close out. And I'm going to say that I'm not going to save it. but the system will always keep a log of any documents that you have actually created for that patient. So if a patient says that they didn't receive it, or an attorney says it got lost in the mail or something like that, you can always click on it, hit open, and then you can view it again and get it sent out. So next, I'm going to go into the Appointments tab. When it comes to scheduling a patient appointment, you can actually do it in 2 locations of your Katana database. You can always go to the Appointments tab in the patient's file, select New, and then select a specific time slot and day that you actually want to schedule the patient for. Select the specific reason of visit and then hit Save, and it will attach them to the schedule. Now keep in mind, this is not allowing you to do reoccurrences or anything like that. This is just a simple way to just get an appointment on the books if you're already in the patient's file. Once I hit save, this is telling me that my provider is actually not working during that time, but I'm going to hit save to override the system, but it will show you a list of any scheduled appointment that the patient has. You can always hit this print button to provide a list of scheduled, missed, or canceled appointments by that specific patient. And then at the bottom, you'll always see a patient appointment history. So any completed, canceled, missed, documented, anything that's going on with their appointments, you would actually see here. So we always say to be very careful when doing your reoccurring appointments that you don't select and create too many, because if you ever have to cancel or delete any of those, you'll actually see a large list running so you can get those rescheduled. Now, if you need to reschedule an appointment, you can always click on it to highlight, hit reschedule, cancel, or delete straight from the patient's file as well, and then indicate to the system why you're doing that. As far as rescheduling goes, you would just hit reschedule, select the different time slot for the different day that they would like to come in instead, indicate the reason of visit. You can actually select a reschedule reason and hit save, and then it will adjust it to that specific new time. The last thing on this screen that you can do is apply a visit tracker. You can also use templates in your admin visit alert section to create templates that you want to use, so you don't have to do this every single time. But if you wanted to, I currently have one in here, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. But I could hit add, go ahead and start from scratch, or select a template. We'll just go ahead and grab my test template. When you give your template a name and the number of appointments, it will become pre-populated here on your screen. If I want to make any adjustments, I can by just selecting the specific visit number. This is not by date, this is by visit number. So if a patient comes in for their new patient appointment and then say their report of findings is on the 2nd day, their reeval is selected as their 6th visit. If they happen to reschedule or they miss an appointment, it will skip it until it gets to that 6th appointment to notify you and display the specific pop-up. Once I have this created exactly the way I want, indicating anything that I need to, anything I want to provide the patient, then I would just hit save. If in the event I ever need to adjust it, so maybe the patient forgot to make a payment on a specific day or something like that, you can always go to your visit tracker area, hit edit, and then add that in. Maybe on the 7th visit, you want to have an alert that notifies the front desk plus the doctor that a payment is needed. So we'll just type that in, and then again, when they check in for their next appointment, that would pop up for them to see. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And now I want to jump over to our appointments area. So that way I can show you the second way to schedule a patient's appointment. I'm going to go right over to my appointment book tab. You do have the ability to select this schedule button as well, which will also take you to the appointment book. I'm going to go ahead and select 7 p.m. And I'm just going to double click that. select the specific patient that I'm going to schedule for, hit open, and then it's going to bring open this window. If in the event you had a CSV file come over and a patient now wants to be scheduled and they don't have a case just yet, you can always select this new case button and then enter their case information here, so you don't actually have to come out of your appointment book, go to the patient Rolodex, and then create a case. I'm going to select the specific reason of visit of why my patient is coming in. I can indicate if they're a walk-in, and the system will track those. And I can do reoccurring appointments by selecting this recurrence button. Indicate that I want to recur every 1 week on, say, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I want to end this after 10 appointments have been created. Now, just keep in mind that if a patient wants to come in, say, Monday and Wednesdays at 5 o'clock, but Fridays at 4, you would actually have to create your Monday and Wednesdays together and then do your Fridays as a standalone because it is a different time. Once I do that, I would just hit OK. Once I save and close, it's going to show me any kind of scheduling conflicts that I have. Based on this, my provider doesn't have any hours, so everyone is a schedule conflict, but I'm going to just hit save so that way I can get those appointments in. Once my appointment is scheduled, on my appointment dashboard, it's going to display my scheduled appointments. It would also show, if I was to go to, say, a different day, my Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, you would actually see that patient. But today we're just going to focus on the appointment I have scheduled for today. Once I double click that scheduled patient, it's going to move them to arrived in waiting. This just means that they have shown up to your clinic and they are sitting in the waiting room. If you're using self-check-in in your clinic and the patient checks themselves in, it will move them to arrived in waiting as well. Once they're in the arrived in waiting column, you'll go ahead and select the specific room that they are going to. So in the event that you have multiple rooms, you'll know exactly where that specific patient is waiting to be treated. You can go ahead and confirm the provider they're going to see. If the test provider is busy and now they want to see the other provider available, you can go ahead and select it. And now this provider is going to be the treating provider for this patient's visit. You can enter any subjective notes that would go and be logged in their subjective area of their SOAP notes for that specific visit. You'll also see information here based on the appointment date and time, their case information, and if they have a balance, so you can go ahead and take a payment right here if you would like. But if you're just selecting the specific room and provider, hit save, and that moves them to checked in being treated. When the patient is in the checked in being treated area, under the provider dashboard, the provider is also notified that the patient is in process and being treated. So if the provider takes a look at this area, they can see that this patient was placed into adjustment room 2, and they'll know who they're going to see when they go there. Once the provider wants to see the patient, they will go ahead and double click. They'll add in any information that is needed for this specific appointment. We're just going to add some SOAP notes in. Make our selections, and again I have another screen, so it's bringing up everything on my other window. But once I'm done, it'll display those SOAP notes that I've entered in, and this SOAP note area is customizable by the providers, so you can either use the template that you were provided upon customization, you can use a template that another doctor may be supplying, or you can create your own, and we'll go through that in another video. We're going to go ahead and enter in some ICD codes for this patient, and then we're going to select the specific date of current injury. Also keep in mind that if you're dealing with Medicare, Medicare also wants that date in box 15, so you'll place it down here and give it a 454 modifier, so again, you don't have to come back and do it later. When I select the edit charges area, I can go ahead and select the specific CPT codes that I want to go ahead and use. I can even add in some therapies and things like that. And then down here at the bottom, I have the visit quick list. The visit quick list is absolutely amazing when trying to track what is going on with a patient, because it will tell you the reason of visit of why they came in. It'll let you know the visit state. So it's saying checked in as of right now, because we haven't done anything with this appointment just yet as we're entering data. It'll tell you where they're at on a care plan, where they are at on a visit tracker, how many total case visits the patient has. And if I hover over it after SOAP notes have been entered, it will actually show you what the SOAP notes were for that previous visit. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save on this, just so it can lock some of that data in there. And you can see that the patient's font has turned blue, which will also turn blue on the appointment dashboard where the front desk is actually monitoring those patients. So now the front desk knows that the patient has been seen, data has been entered, and now they can go ahead and access that patient file to apply any payments and things like that. But now that I saved that appointment the first time, now you can see that this information has now changed. So you can see that, again, the reason of visit is there on my visit quick list. The patient is currently documented because they haven't checked out yet. They have been adjusted because I did apply an adjustment code. They are on a care plan. Once this appointment is completed, it would show 1 of 24. Once again, this patient's appointment is completed, it'll change this NA to 1. And then if I had a visit tracker, it would also show it there as well. Some other information in this screen that is extremely helpful is it does give you a running balance for that patient. It will show some patient information. It'll let you know when the patient's next appointment is scheduled for. So in this case, because we did make reoccurrences, it is showing that the next appointment is for Friday, July 10th. If I clicked on it, it would actually show me all of the scheduled appointments this patient has, and I can select new to go ahead and again schedule the patient for their follow-up appointment right here. It would show the visit tracker if I had one and where they're at on it by highlighting this graph. There's flags that you can select. Now the flags are not dictated as far as their meaning in Katana. Every office has the ability to decide what color flag means what. So if a provider is running behind and doesn't have the ability to enter in SOAP notes, you can designate a flag color, say blue, for missing SOAP notes. And when this visit is checked out, it will actually lock in that flag, allowing the provider to run a report to see any appointments that have a flag associated. And then you could just double click the appointment and initiate it, which I'll show you in just a brief moment. And then you do have some insurance information that will display if insurance is applied. On the far right of the screen, there's a patient notes not SOAP area. And any notes added in here will carry over from visit to visit until that note is actually deleted. So if I open this up, you'll see that there is a red X to the far right. It does let me know when it was created and what user actually placed this note in. So you can use this as a communication tool or a tool to just log information that you don't want housed within the patient SOAP notes. Maybe they told you something about a family member that you'd like to check up on next time or something of that nature. That can all be added here. You also have the ability to see with the view charges area what charge was added to the patient's file. So again, if you have charges being placed in and they're carrying over from visit to visit, you would know based on the charges that are being displayed whether you have to edit those, add something new, or just leave it alone the way it is. And the same thing with view ICD codes. ICD codes that are added to a patient's appointment carry over from visit to visit. So you would just take a look at what's being displayed. If anything changed, you can change it by just simply hitting the edit ICD, removing anything that needs to be removed, adding in something that's new, and then it'll make those changes. And then that is what's starting to carry over from this moment on. You can do bulk write-offs within this area. You can change the location. Maybe they actually went to adjustment room 1 instead of 2. You can change it. You can take a payment in here as well, just like you can in the patient's file. And you have a record and publish. The record and publish area allows you to timestamp your SOAP notes after they have been dialed in. Everything is exactly the way you want it. You would hit that record and publish button, and that's used for Medicare. So that way it's actually timestamped. But just keep in mind that when you do timestamp and use that record and publish option, that you can't use the record and publish button again. It will not allow you to timestamp it again. So it is important that you do wait to use that if you're going to use it till you're finished. Now I'm going to go ahead and select checkout. And now the patient has moved to the completed column. But you can see that under the flag column that there is a blue flag associated. And at the very bottom, it's showing me a grand summaries, my expected total based on charges, my charge total. So the expected total actually removes any kind of fee schedule allowed amounts set forth by insurance and things, and that's why it shows you the charge total as well. But in this case, it's showing the exact same amount, and then it'll keep giving you a running flow of how many completed appointments are actually in this column for the day. But if I move back to the provider dashboard, the patient is no longer being displayed because the patient is checked out, they're completed, and they're gone for the day. So that way the provider isn't being overwhelmed with a whole lot of data on this screen. But if I wanted to take a look at my flagged appointments, I would just go ahead down here at the very bottom, select my specific range of days and hit search. It will populate any appointment that I associated a flag with within that date range. So I can just go ahead, double click it. That appointment will generate, and then I can go ahead and add in anything that was missing that I needed to do, take my flag back to none, and then go ahead and check out. The patient is still currently sitting there, but if I hit that search button again, now they're gone and they are no longer being displayed with a flag because it has been removed. The last thing I'd like to go over in this phase of training is the ability to customize your appointment screen. Now that the flow is completed, I can double click any completed appointment to reopen. And I just wanted to show you what you've seen a little bit with me opening up this side. You can customize your layout. So if in the event, say, for example, you don't take insurance in your clinic, you can hit this little red or this little X and remove that from your screen. There's also some additional information up here in the panels area at the top left corner that you can bring forward on your screen. So maybe your office does listings. I can go ahead and select the listings option, bring it forward on my screen, and now I have listings available as well. If I don't like where the listings panel was placed, I can click on the blue header area of that specific panel, click on my mouse, and start dragging it around the screen. As I'm doing that, you'll see these little tabs start to open up, and if I hover my mouse over those specific areas, it will highlight in blue where it will drop it if I let go. So in this case, maybe I want it over on my right-hand side. So I'm going to let go, and it's going to go ahead and place that panel there instead. And then I can shorten the column width if I would like to show exactly what I would like it to show. Maybe I want to make my images area fixed on my screen. So instead of it being on a slide, so I'm going to go ahead and hit this little push pin that'll fix it on the screen. But if I look at it and I don't like it, I can go ahead and push the push pin again and move it back to the slide. This concludes our phase 2 of training.